name's Ali. I'm 60 years old, married with 2 children, 1 granddaughter, and I live in Shiremore, which is near Whitley Bay in northeast of England. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in May 2005.
Was that the first time you'd ever heard about Parkinson's disease?
Absolutely, yeah. First time I actually heard the words where I saw them written on the sort of case board when I went to see my consultant following the referral from my GP in April, May 2005. Prior to that, I'd never heard of it at all.
Right. Are there any key messages that people need to know about Parkinson's disease?
Yes, I think there are a lot of preconceptions people have. It's not all about tremor. It was certainly a symptom I had, but it wasn't the only one. It's not all to do with old people either. I'm 60 and counted young, and I know that from the stats I've heard, although I don't have the details on me, but a lot of people younger than 40, in fact some as young as 20, are diagnosed with it every year as well. It's not fun, it's life damaging, but it's not the end of the world. It's not contagious, and it's not known to be hereditary. Sorry,
That's okay.
I've lost track.
You were saying about key messages for people that they need to know about Parkinson's disease.
That's right. It's degenerative, and there's no cure at present, but it's not fatal, and I count myself very lucky in that respect. You're not alone. There are lots of people there who've got the condition. It's very scary, it's isolating, and makes you feel very, very vulnerable. And everybody's different in terms of their symptoms, their severity, the medication that you need as a result of that, your reaction to it, how you cope with it, your family and domestic circumstances. Everyone's different. The way I tend to describe that part of the condition to friends and family is that I've got Finlayson's, which is my version, which is Parkinson's with a chance to whinge about it. And it's a constant theme within the condition itself, and everyone you talk to, everyone's different in their relation to the condition itself.
Can I just ask, you said that you got your diagnosis in 2005. What was it that first took you to speak to your doctor about concerns that you had? Had you been ill, or...?
I'd been off with depression from 2005, July, through to January 2004. Sorry, 2005. And I was back at work. I was psychologically fine, but physically my body wasn't right. I could tell I was getting very, very tired. I'd slowed down. I'd always been very quick on my feet, and I wasn't anymore. And I just wasn't right, although I was off the antidepressive medication. I was still not right. I had a slight tremor as well, my left ankle, and most upsetting of all was my speech was poor. It's not too good today, but it was a lot worse back then. And it was a key element of my working environment. I was talking to people in terms of the work tasks I had. I worked in a large open plan room, and the speech was probably the worst part of it for me at the time. So I managed to persuade my GP to refer me for some speech therapy. And I owe the speech therapist I saw a huge debt of thanks, because it was a result of discussing my general condition that she suggested I have a neurological check, which I requested to my GP, and that's what led to my diagnosis. So in terms of speech therapy, it was through that route that I actually got my diagnosis in 2005 following a DAT scan.
How did you feel when you got a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, Alan?
I was surprised and shocked. It's not good news, but I felt relieved, and I was puzzled by that, and I was told it was a common reaction. At least I could name the condition, and it was that tiny little bit more familiar and less scary as a result. I was just a little bit more in control of my life. I knew it was happening to my body, and could deal with it a little bit better than that. Although I was still apprehensive about the long-term effects, because as I just said, it's a degenerative condition, and it's not fun, and it'll get worse. So there was apprehension as well. So shock, apprehension, and relief.
Okay. Can I ask, were you given any information about Parkinson's disease when you first got your diagnosis?
Yes, I was very lucky in that the team that took on my care and treatment in North Tyneside were very keen on informing patients about the condition and being straight with them. I've had nothing but the best results from that side of things. I was keen myself to investigate the condition. I accessed the internet and did a lot of research myself. But they were there with any information required whenever I asked for it. And I was fully involved in all the decisions affecting my care and treatment as well. So again, I would count myself very lucky in that respect.
That takes me on to ask about services. Can I ask if you've used any services since you've had a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease?
Big style. Top of the list is speech therapy, for obvious reasons, led to my diagnosis. I've also been given speech therapy voice exercises to do, and although I'm not conscientious in doing them on a regular basis, they're very good. I tend to be someone who will do as much as I need to get by, and I could probably get more benefit from them if I was conscientious in doing them, but I'm not. I've used the physiotherapy services in the same national health area as well, and that led to following the standard period of weeks with physiotherapy to reference to a healthy living centre gym, which now my condition has slightly worsened, is going to be very useful indeed, because I tend to shuffle and freeze more often now, and the exercises involving balance and gait, which I can get at the gym, are going to be extremely useful, I can tell. I've got about 10 weeks of that to go. I've been going for a couple of weeks and it's been already useful. And also the signposting to something called conductive education at a local school in Newcastle is handy, because the course teaches you hints and tips and tricks and techniques for very ordinary everyday exercises and tasks like turning over in bed, getting up and standing and walking safely. Again, there's a stress and emphasis on improving your balance and gait, which at the current time will be helping my condition quite a lot. It wasn't so useful when I was diagnosed, first of all, because the symptoms were relatively mild, but now that it's degenerated a little bit, it's going to prove much more beneficial now. I also was lucky enough to have access to Parkinson's disease nurse specialist and to the education service in the hospital as well. And the education service was very useful, not because I was receiving education, but because I was able to take advantage of the opportunity to do question and answer sessions with the students. And that made a big difference to my self-confidence. It helped me a great deal and led me on to take on voluntary work with the Parkinson's Disease Society, which again is a big plus. It's great therapy, volunteering, as far as I'm concerned. So I've been a heavy user of services in one way or another locally, yes.
And a contributor to services as well, if I may say.
That's true. It's been good for me, and it's good to be able to help out as well.
Can I ask you about medication? What medication you take to manage your condition?
I started out with a mild dose of Mirapexin, a dopamine agonist, which helped me, and it was, at the time, seemed like a magic switch from being completely out of control of a lot of areas of my muscles and body. It worked very well. And for a period of a year, maybe a couple of years, I think, that was the only medication I was on. And then my gait and balance started to worsen around about January 2008. And I discussed the issues with my consultant at the same time as I started using a walking stick. We added in a small levodopa dose to the medication regime at the same time as I started using the walking stick. And I regret that, because I think with hindsight I should have changed one thing at a time and seen where the benefit came from. It did improve my symptoms. It helped me deal with them a bit better, but not as much as I'd wished. The improvement was less than with the original medication when I was diagnosed. I mentioned a few minutes ago that I was starting to freeze and to shuffle quite a lot. I find that extremely upsetting and very embarrassing in public when it happens as well. It's new to me. My symptoms were mild, and they're now starting to get a little bit worse. And I discussed that again with my consultant at the latest review I had, which was a couple of weeks ago. And my medication is going to be adjusted to, instead of having peaks and troughs, which are tied to three doses of medication per day, to having a single dose of Mirapexin, which is the dopamine agonist. Hopefully that will plateau the symptom, and I'll manage to at least experience less shuffling, and that hopefully will have a positive effect on my quality of life.
So you see your consultant on a regular basis to have your medication reviewed, and
I know that they're available at the end of a phone anytime as well. I've always been lucky in that there's been absolutely every chance to discuss my condition and follow up with any questions at all. It's never a problem at all. I'm lucky.
And you see the Parkinson's nurse specialist on a regular basis also?
I can do, yes. I don't have a regular appointment with her because the consultancy is every 4 months. That's fine, under normal circumstances. But I do see them when I'm at the hospital anyway, and I'm at the hospital for other reasons, for other meetings and groups that I work with, and see them almost socially, as it were, as well.
Okay, so your medication's being adjusted at the moment to take care of some of the difficulties you've noticed recently. Can you tell us what happens if you don't take your medication, or if you miss a dose, or if you're late taking medication?
Yes, the effect is twofold, and has been happening recently when I stand up or start to walk. My shuffling, my step, it becomes short and quick. I feel immediately as I want to sit down. I shuffle, and if I'm not careful, I'll fall. I'm extremely careful, and I've not had a fall yet, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if I do. That's been the major change, and it's disproportionately upsetting because I've never had to bother with this in the past. I'm a very impatient patient, and I've always been quick on my feet, active, played sport, and I take great exception to the fact my body's not working the way it should do. So shuffling is the major change. My voice gets worse as well. It goes hoarse and quite high and squeaky when I don't take my medication. And although in the past the timing of my medication dose hasn't been a critical issue for me during the day, it now is rapidly becoming so. Hence the change that I discussed with my consultant and the medication alteration which we're planning.